I want to caution everyone that believing that only when you don't know the people or you've been told you're competing is the time you should prepare. I don't think we should assume that come list me is in the bag, and I'm not trying to be a fearmonger, but the truth is we have to earn our business at every step.
Amy, always good to see you. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
So as Eyerusalem was mentioning, inventory is down 35% year over year. And we could have been talking a year ago about an inventory crisis. So inventory is down even lower than it was a year ago. And we know that if a listing shows well, is priced right, it's almost like getting that commission check handed to you when the listing agreement is signed. So because of that, we're seeing that it's becoming more and more competitive to actually get listings.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we wanted to talk about this morning was let's spend some time discussing how can we compete for listings when it's not a come list me, right? When the call is, you know what, we're going to interview 3 agents and you're one of the 3. When can you stop by and talk to us about selling our home? So I think a lot of agents get a little bit nervous because they're not prepared. Right.
Right.
There's almost 2 groups of agents. One that's almost always, I work sphere, come list me. And then when they get that call, it's like, oh. And then there's others that almost all they do is compete because, it's different lead sources and they're just used to competing. So, I guess if you're in the former camp of maybe not being prepared or being, frightened, frankly, when you get that call of, you're going to be one of the 3, where do you start?
Well, okay, I want to back up one step.
Sure.
And say, I want to caution everyone that believing that only when you don't know the people or you've been told you're competing is the time you should prepare. I don't think we should assume that come list me is in the bag, and I'm not trying to be a fearmonger, but the truth is we have to earn our business at every step. And if it's a past client and they say, we're ready to sell our house, and you just show up and don't do a good job, you don't know that they aren't interviewing others. And I cannot believe the number of signs on the at intersections in my market that say, why pay an agent this? I'll do it for that. So let's make sure that we earn our commission, even with the people who say they're going to work with us.
So I appreciate you bringing that up because this happened to me maybe 6 weeks ago, right? Had a friend, wanted to list his property, gorgeous condominium, went up, got the listing, things were great. Like 2 weeks ago, he said, I don't know if I told you, but we also interviewed so-and-so with another company. Mm-hmm. We let him know that he didn't get the listing, but if you could let him know that we're now listed in case he has a buyer. I had no idea that this friend of mine was interviewing, another agent. First of all, I didn't ask. Shame on me, right? Mm-hmm. I thought I had it in the bag. And I think that we've all been in situations like this. So you've said before, everybody gets treated the same.
Yes.
Everybody gets the same exceptional service, and we don't cut corners with anybody. Mm-hmm. Because we want that level 10 service, so we get referrals from them.
Yeah, and maybe what we should just say is this is your brand, right? You make a certain product. This is how you make it.
Yep.
Make it the same for everybody.
Right.
Yeah. It's time for us to standardize our service. So, but to your point now, let's agree that we're all going to do our best for everyone. You're asking how do you prepare, right? You get the
well, yeah, and again, I think that if I go into Apple and bring it to buy my 4th MacBook, I still get the service that's expected at Apple. If I go in to lease a second BMW, they don't treat me less. They still ask, would you like some water, right? What questions do and yet sometimes we just get a little complacent.
They also don't give you a factory second. They give you the same.
They don't, right. Yes. So no, I this is my brand. we've also heard the mantra before, this is my business, which frankly, we need to be hearing more often, but this is my business. This is my brand.
Yeah.
And, this is my, minimum service expectation, for everybody. Absolutely. Good.
So
okay.
I love what you said, how do you prepare? Because I think that's where it begins, right? Oh, pardon. There was no way to not.
Bless you.
Okay, so a lot of people say, how do you handle objections or how do you convert at the kitchen table? But it begins right now, right? It begins with we're thinking of selling. It's hard to handle. I love those lists of objection handlers. I think if you're at the kitchen table and you're fighting over the price of the property, or you're really having to get creative negotiating your own commission, it's a little late. There are ways, but it would have been way better if you had been blazing the trail at the beginning. So first things first, you really show genuine interest in them, right? And something that I say to all the new agents that I train is, always go at least 3 deep on questions. When someone says, we're thinking of selling, don't say, great, how's Wednesday? Say, interesting. How did that come about, right? Just start to be engaged. Really make sure you understand what's going on.
And this is before you even get there, right? This is that, this is after you get the text message or the phone call, we're thinking about selling, right? We have some great questions on dominaterealestate.net where people can go but like you and I've said before, that's the minimum. That's the minimum, right? So go 3 deep on the questions. Okay, great. What's next?
It's a made up number, but just when you think excuse me, we have allergies here. Just when you think you know the answer, when they've told you, well, it's important. My husband had a job transfer. Don't go, great. How's Wednesday, right?
Right.
Oh, interesting. Really? How soon does he need to go? Are you guys planning to go at the same time? Keep asking questions. Sometimes we're in such a hurry to show off. We're in such a hurry to engage or to sell or to convert. We pounce on any question or any statement as, okay, I got this. Now I'm going to run. Keep asking the next clarifying question until you can't think of any more.
Good.
Next. Okay, so do you want to still be on the phone, or what's our next step?
Okay, so we've had our pre-listing book is done, right? Let's assume that. Maybe we should show that again. We've had our phone conversation. We've said, hey, I'd like to send you a book that discusses me, my office, my company, and what we're going to do to get your home sold. Do you have a few minutes to review that? Yeah. So when I get to the appointment, we can talk everything. We can spend all of our time talking about you and your needs. Yep. Great. I either drop off the book or I send the book. By send, I mean overnight. I am an advocate of less email, more of the experience of it getting delivered to you. If the appointment's tomorrow and you need to email it, right? We talked about that on Mastermind on Friday. Ellen Ng, who, if you go to allegiance-marketing.com and you look up these books, it's her book. She was the guinea pig, right? So she's had this book for 3 years and she prefers to mail it. But if there's no time, then she does have an email version that she sends. And she was talking about that on Friday. So the book has been sent. What's the next step?
I would send a video either in email or text, just acknowledging the conversation. And there could be any number of things. You could say, hey, I've sent you a book with samples of my marketing, with an overview of my company and how we're going to serve you, whatever that might be. So good to talk to you. I understand what you're saying about your priorities. And don't be that generic. I understand what you're saying about the pets. I'm so glad you brought that up. We'll definitely talk about that when I come on Wednesday.
Good. Excellent.
Yeah, I think that I've shared this before on shows that the video texts, it just amazes me. I do it because thumb texting is hard. Yep. But it's just, they act like it's so above and beyond.
Right. Yeah. And this doesn't have to be complicated. We're not even talking about BombBomb in this case. It's just pull out your phone and just shoot the video and you text it to them. It doesn't get lost in the email shuffle or anything else.
Yep. And I do this with the agents that I coach, and I have agents say, I didn't know you could do that. So
interesting. Okay.
Then the next thing, it really does depend on how thorough you want your process to be, because I don't want anyone listening to feel overwhelmed. But Charlie and I always want to share every little thing we have. So I think the next thing that you could do is send a Google form asking about their property, right?
Okay.
When did you last have the furnace serviced? If you have a furnace in your market, just various things. What sets your home apart? What are the upgrades that we didn't talk about on the phone? Just anything that you can think of. Maybe it's just a 10-question survey. Make it super simple for them to figure out. But it really does save you time once you get there. And it also reestablishes your professionalism. It shows that you have a process and that you care about the details.
Good. Excellent. So go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, as we're approaching the appointment, but go ahead with your next one.
Oh, I was going to say show up on time.
Okay, so let's take a step back, as you would say. What is my headspace as I'm going to that appointment?
Ooh, I want to hear your thoughts, because I have several answers.
So, I think you got to get in the zone somehow, right? Whether it's affirmations or whether it's music that you listen to on the way there. But I agree, you want to be dressed professionally. You don't want to be rushing, right? We know that when we're running late, you just get frazzled.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the agent that shows up late all the time, right? That really annoys people. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about competing. So you're one of 3 agents that are going to show up. Yeah. And if you're the one that's late and somebody else and they really like the other agent, you could lose a listing because you were late, and they think you're disorganized because you were late.
And you probably are.
Yeah, true. Thank you.
If you're chronically late.
Yeah. So affirmations can be something like, these clients need me to sell their home. I am the expert for them, right? Whatever it takes. And I think reciting those before you get in the car, and maybe even when you're in the car, I think is important. To get your head in the right place. But what are your thoughts on your headspace as you're approaching the appointment, knowing that you're going to compete, and there's some people that haven't been in that situation before, and there's a little bit of fear there?
Sure. I think for me it would probably be really energizing music to get me in a really positive space, and then also just really thinking about the timeline, but this is me very personally. Yeah. I tend to think of words in the moment. I can think of the right thing to say. The thing that I may not have done a very good job of is thinking, well, if they don't get this done till then we're going to need to give the photographer this much time. I've had people give me 24 hours notice. Okay, we're ready. I'm like, oh, I told you I needed a week.
Right.
My photographers don't just sit around waiting for this call. So that would be probably what I would do, is just really revisit the timeline and say, how are we going to serve them best? What does this look like? So I'm prepared to speak to that just off the cuff. And this is something that we've talked about in previous shows, Charlie, is prepare. So maybe for me, here's the answer for me, probably just the music. Everything else I needed to have done already. Yeah. Right? I need to be absolutely prepared. I know days on market in this target area. I know the list to sell ratio. I have checked in with the last 7 days actives and everything else. Like, I know this thing by the back of my hand, and I'm not going to have to look at my notes. And then I just really get energized, and I'm there to say hello and greet every child and every pet. And well, with COVID, we'll see how that goes. Right. I'm prepared to just be present and engage and not be fumbling for my notes.
Okay, I like it. So I'm taking some notes here, because we're going to turn this into a blog, and we're going to put it in the newsletter that we send out every Friday. So one of the big ones is going to be on time, which is a challenge for a lot of agents. Mm-hmm. It just is. So leave early, show up on time so you're not frazzled. And I'm adding into the list, we didn't really discuss it, you hit on it a second ago, knowing the market, right? Mm-hmm. You've already prepared the CMA. That's a given. You have to know the market. And those of you that are watching the DC metro market and many other markets, the MLS has hot sheets, right? And you can go in and you can configure that to be based on whatever you want it to be. And then you just go on every day, and it tells you what's happened within that criteria. And if you're not spending a few minutes every day on the market, then I think you're going to be caught flat-footed when you get questions from clients, or when you're trying to prepare for such an important appointment. So be on time. Mm-hmm. Let's assume that we're on time, and we've greeted the clients. So we're going to tour the home with them and kind of do the rapport building. We've talked about this before. I like the idea of trying to pick up on cues that are in the house, right? The kid's
Mhm.
got a soccer trophy. Oh, your son plays soccer. My son plays soccer. Or I used to play soccer. Whatever, right? Trying to build rapport with those clients. So let's presume that we've done that. We're sitting down at the kitchen table. Let's go through this a little bit briefly because I do want to get to some objections, perhaps.
Sure.
But talk to me about that kitchen table discussion.
Well, again, I want to back up because I think you're right. We leapfrogged over preparation. Charlie, you and I talk about you need to have more marketing for the high expressive client. You need more stats for the analytical client, and you need to try to read the cues that way. But the truth is, regardless of the type of client, they're going to notice if you don't know your stuff.
Yep.
Seriously. And if you're guessing, and I will say right now, pricing properties is extremely challenging. So I have agents say, well, I looked at the cost per square foot. I mean, unless you're looking at identical units in a condominium high rise, I'm not quite sure that that's a good way to price things.
Right.
I recommended to some of the agents I coach that they take a pricing class. Like, if you're not good at this, quit coming to the coaching calls saying, help, how do I price?
Yeah.
Because it really requires practice. So maybe take a class, get some help from your broker, do what you need to do to become better. But I'll tell you, the number one way is to check and see what's going on right now. And most of us who were trained in a market previous to this one, look at sold comps. Truth is, those don't tell you everything when the market's going like this. So you got to look at the active competition and really think about, how does this compare to my client's property and which ones of these will sell faster?
Yeah.
Are there 10 that will go before us? Are there 15 that will go before us? And then I have agents get all fussy and appraisery on me and say, yeah, but that's not a true comp because put on your buyer's agent hat and ask, what will the buyers look at? If you're competing against a house that is technically a comp, but somebody else would happily buy it instead of yours, then it's a comp.
Well, yeah, and I think that, a lot of MLSs have coming soons, right? And we can't forget about those, right? Yeah. What is coming the week that we're listing? What is coming the week after we're listing? We can put a coming soon in 21 days prior. So you've got to be paying attention to those as well. If you're preparing 10 days out, it would be nice to know what else is coming on the market your same weekend and what they're planning to price it.
Yep.
Okay,
so
good.
Actives under contract sold for 30 days, 60 days. Then before you go in, make a coming soon video out in front of their house before you ring the doorbell and show it to them. Now, push back on me and say my MLS doesn't allow coming soon. That's fine. You don't have to get the address of the property.
Right.
Right. You can say, hey, I'm listing this amazing property. Call me. But when you show it to them and say, hey, can I post this on all my social channels? They'll just see that you're trying already. Right. It's the assumptive close. The other assumptive close that I do before sitting down at the kitchen table is, as we're walking through, I am measuring the property with my laser measurer. Okay. Oh, wow. This is a nice sized dining room. My goodness. Right. Okay. Yep. I take copious notes and I measure as I go. Now we're sitting at the kitchen table. I want to reestablish rapport, really, yep. But reestablish that we're all on the same page. Maybe you only spoke to one of them on the phone and not the other, right? So, Greg, I talked to Debbie and she said that being out of here by the end of September is absolutely vital. Tell me about that. Like, let's let the other person have their say. So I always either establish or reestablish what's going on. Even if I had talked to them both, I'm going to sort of retake the temperature of the room. And then this is the challenging thing, Charlie, is to make the whole thing a conversation, right? To not just blast them for an hour, right? To make every single section. If you're talking about marketing, if you're talking about pricing, if you're talking about showings, each section, and in my mind, the presentation has sections, just topics,
Yeah, right.
Make each one a conversation with them. Don't just blast them. And then get to the end and say, well, a little too late for them to buy in.
So we've only got a few minutes left. Let's talk about objections. Let's talk about, let's say that my commission that I'm offering up is 5 chickens. 2.5 chickens will be paid to me and 2.5 chickens will be paid to the buyer's agent, right? Well, so-and-so was here last night and she said that she would do it for 4 chickens. What do you say?
So how do you handle that? Wow. It so depends. For me, it depends on the circumstances. I'm tempted to let you handle your own objection because I might handle it differently.
So I would bring up a couple things. Well, hopefully I've already brought them up, right? That my days on market may be better than the competition, and that my results, the net to the seller hopefully is better than the competition.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were talking about this on a mastermind on Friday, there was an agent who was telling us that she asks who the other agents are that the seller will be interviewing, and she does research on them, and she compares herself to them in a chart,
mm-hmm.
right? As in the results. Some people aren't going to give you that information. So if they don't, I think you can compare yourself to the MLS in general, but everybody is very focused on the fee, on the 2 chickens or the 3 chickens, right? Where they're not focused on their net. And I think that it is very important to be focused on the net and to be focused on my marketing is going to get more people through the door, which is going to create more interest, right? Which is going to get more offers, which is going to drive the price up. So when you get this objection of somebody will do it cheaper, I think you got to compare the marketing, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. And you know, another objection can be, well, it's a great market. This is going to sell this weekend no matter who does it.
Yes.
You know, and I think that you got to go back to your stats compared to everyone else. I saw some MLS stats from someplace in a hot market, mm-hmm. and the average days on market was 35. Mm-hmm. And most people would be like, there's no way, mm-hmm. way, right? You've got the teardowns that are on for a long time. You've got the new construction buildings that are on for a long time, and that skews the numbers.
Sure.
So if your numbers aren't if your numbers aren't good, we've all had the difficult listings, yeah, right, that linger and stuff. I think that you can play with the numbers a little bit, right? If the upper brackets is sitting, then maybe you say, here are my stats for things that are $1 million, for instance. So anyway, I digress a little bit, but
no, I don't think so. I think you're dead right. And I mostly agree with what you said about you really have to emphasize that the way you're going to handle the marketings and the showings is what's going to get them top dollar. For me, and you and I talked about this offline, for me, the stats are a little bit made up. Mm-hmm. There's an agent in my brokerage who purposely underprices every single listing to make it a crazy over. Right. And then he feels like that creates wow factor. Yeah. That's super artificial. You know, yep. What I mean? So to say that his numbers are better than mine, he actually creates a lot of anxiety and a lot of mess, mm-hmm. by the number of over the top, and then a fight for the appraisal, you know, because the delta is so extreme. So for me, and if you didn't do a good job of showing your marketing before and they're objecting now, maybe you need to, you know, rewind and re-quantify, but to say, this is going to be the breakdown, this is going to be the countdown, this is going to be the timeline. Emphasize how you're going to handle the COVID specific stuff, how you're going to make it safe, how you're going to do extra virtual things. Even if in-person stuff is allowed in your market, go above and beyond and do all those other things anyway. Yep. And the way we get top dollar, and this is what I say to FSBOs as well. You said they'll say, well, anything sells, anybody can sell anything. Sure, that's true. FSBOs, they could put a sign on the fence and sell it. Although not for any price. I've noticed that. Right. It is possible to overprice a property. Yes. But the thing that I say is that's absolutely true. But to be able to handle and navigate the multiple offers and take care of every possible contingency and make sure we capture the highest, strongest is a process, right? And this is what I do. This is what I get paid for, right? And just stand up for your commission. And I think saying something simple like that with confidence, and maybe that's the thing you need to practice, is just saying, this is what I do, right? Yep. You know, I have a standard that makes this possible, and just going low on the commission whenever I get a pushback is not the way I run my business. And the truth is, if you're a better negotiator than me, you should definitely hire this other person. Like, I am an extremely strong negotiator. It's one of the many things you're hiring me for.
I like that. And practice, right? Practice, role play. Get your system down. We have probably 15 different notes here of how we should be prepared. And a lot of this is rinse and repeat, right? Of course, the CMA is going to be different. But you know what? If you practice enough, you're not going to get an objection from somebody that you haven't practiced. You won't, right? So I was just going to say, I think it's important to role play this. I think that it's important to practice it. And we don't want to be practicing on somebody who wants to pay us money.
Can we speak to practice? I know we're over time. Can we speak to practice?
Yes, briefly.
Okay, so what does practice mean? Figure it out and put it in your calendar and commit now. Plenty of people thought this career would be easier than it is. Or they hear us say practice, right, and Yeah, I hate role play.
Yep. Yep.
Quit being a crybaby. You are in a position to make an incredible amount of money on every single listing. Start earning your keep. You've got to hone your skill. You have to take your professionalism seriously. Set aside half an hour a day and don't make excuses. You will get better.
Right. Yeah. Is it worth a half hour a day to earn $20,000? I would say yes. I would say yes.
Yeah.
All right. This was an awesome call. Always good to see you, Amy. Have a great rest of your Monday.